Welcome back for part 2, where we determine just how bad it is inside.
Alright, so since the engine's not looking as ugly as I thought it would, I thought I'd throw a thermometer out here. Yeah, it's a cheapo, but they work. And granted, this is in the sun, but it's on concrete, so it's not absorbing heat from behind it. So that's the temperature in the sun in Orlando in mid-August. Actually, what the hell is it? Late August. So there you have it. So I have intelligently moved the engine inside the cool room, where I will continue to dismantle the lower end and see if I got away lucky on this somehow. Let's see a couple of other interesting things. This is my junk pile, stuff that is no longer of use. There's the water pump. As we look on stuff that I am saving, obviously the intake manifold. I will pull the exhaust manifold out of that junk pile. But that's the starter, and it can be rebuilt and still fetch high dollar versus buying it new. The head looks good, and it's the right head. It's that 12H 1236 or something close to that. And funny engines can be. In the episodes where I got screwed and got that 18V motor in my 67, which started this whole journey, the oil pump mount was seized to the block somehow. And the only way I could get it off was to break it. Didn't intentionally, but a couple of nuance hits with a rubber mallet and click, just broke, because it's aluminum. So as this one, which has been filled with water for a million years, it pulled right out. So, you know, what's up with that? So let's go look at the engine in the cool room, because I'm in the garage now and it's still, well, with the door open. I bet it's, even though I'm getting shade from the roof, I bet it's 98 in here. So the hell with that. Here we are in the blissful cool room with my unit, doing its best just to keep this at normal human temperature. So I cleaned it up with brake fluid, and you can tell because it's flat, it's not shiny with oil. So, and again, it's remarkably in sound shape. There's no rust yet. I'm hoping that the bearings where they hit the journals are still good, etc. But it's obvious from these bolt dividers that this has been faffed around with some point in the past. So we'll see where we are in return with respect to that. For sure, what I can see already is at least a good honing on the cylinders. Might have to get them bored, which means, you know, new pistons. Not too bad. Within the range of decent costs. But if the cam is, or the shock, well, both. If the cam is bad and the crank are bad, then that's a whole different level of, oh my God, what am I going to do? Now remember, in a previous episode on the 18V, I think the cam is good. I got to check to see if they kept the same cam from GB to V series. And as far as the crank, if the V is the same, they're both 5 mains, so I don't know what they did, if anything. I've got my donor car, which I know runs. So I used to tool it up and down the street for giggles. Don't know what state of, what would it be, efficiency the engine is, but it does run. So if this crank is really bad, I can always pull that 18V out and get parts off of it. For example, I think the oil pump is salvageable across engines, maybe the water pump that I need. The rest of the stuff you kind of want to change. You want to change the bearings, you want to change the lifters, unless they're spotless, but I haven't checked that yet, and they sure as hell didn't just fall out like they're supposed to. But there are bits and pieces off of a V that I can certainly use in this one to reduce the cost of the total rebuild on this guy. Also, I keep mentioning putting this thing in an engine stand. Well, putting it in an engine stand is kind of a pain in the ass because this thing is still heavy and you got to get it up off the ground like 3 feet, put the bolts through it. So I'm going to continue to do it the way I've done things since I was a teenager, on the ground. Just pull it apart. Also get a bunch of that weight out with the crank. And then certainly on the rebuild, I will put it in an engine stand. But I think as far as tearing this apart, I'll just be flopping around on the floor and banging on the pistons and stuff to get them out. And do it the old-fashioned way, which we know works. All right, so in that 18V dismantle episode, I went into pretty good detail on how to take an engine apart. You can tell on this one I'm skipping lots of stuff, just taking all the bolts out and showing you. So I'm not going to dwell on that stuff anymore, but as I said, it's been messed with because you can see these clips are all bunged up. So we'll see what that portends. I got to get this gasket off, so that's watching paint dry to see me do that. I got to get those 2 studs out, and then I'll just start taking the crank bolts off and pull it apart. And somewhere in the middle there, I'll take another shot. As I discover stuff that's atypical, good or bad, I will take the time to show you. Point of interest, I'm trying to take this all apart, right, as I described. It's locked, right, because the pistons are seized against the cylinder walls. I don't think anything is seized along the crankshaft, but I could be wrong. So I can't get at certain bolts or nuts on some of these cranks or rod ends. So my plan of attack is to undo what I can. So like this piston and this one, because they're opposites, right? This and this match, and then this and this match. So that's how the engine works. Because I can get to these, I'm going to take that all apart and free the rod from the crank, right? And reduce as much, what would be the word, friction or stopping of everything from moving. Then I'll only have these 2 that, if they're stuck, are causing the stick, right? Causing it to not rotate. So that will be easier for me to try and free these up and just rotate them enough to get those last 2 nuts off. So that's where we are. Just a lack of progress update. This is the one that freed up easily from underneath. That would just pop out. But these are the 2 I'm trying to get out, but again, I can't get to that last rod end bolt. I think I've been saying nuts, but they're all bolts. I can't get to them because of the position they're in until I turn the crank to get that last bolt so I can get it out. And if I tried with a regular wrench, and it just strips because I just have a terrible angle on it. Can't get a socket in, it's just horrible all around. So I turn it this direction, and if I pound on the pistons from the top, that will force the crank in the right direction so that I could get to that last 2 bolts. But this guy is super seized. I have both the bolts out. I've been pounding on it, on this direction, pounding it up with a stick, and it ain't budging. I've sprayed PV Blaster in here, and I'm gonna let that sit, and hopefully that'll kind of get down the sides of the cylinder and free something up. The next step will be to apply some heat, because at this point the pistons, the chances that they're still usable after all this corrosion is slim. So they're kind of sacrificial. Now the rods and the pins, they're still useful. I haven't done anything to bung them up. So I'm gonna try to get these out, So again, worst case is I need to bore the cylinders. Hopefully they have not been bored yet and I'm not at some limit on increasing the diameter. But we'll see. We'll get to all that once I get this thing apart and can see what's going on. FYI, because I know some people are going, just spin it by the crank nut. Well, I can't spin it that direction, which is tightening the bolt, because that's forcing against this locked piston here. So I can't go that direction. So I tried coming this way, and it's so seized that the bolt just came undone. So that does me no good trying to turn it there. And I took the flywheel off. I could put that on and try banging on teeth, but man, if I can't get these pistons to budge by banging on them directly, then turning the crankshaft is not going to help. All right, it's the day after, and I had noticed that one hadn't gone down, that fluid had gone dry, and that hadn't gone down. So I've been beating the hell out of it. I applied heat. I applied the flywheel so I could bang, get a moment on it. And that one, ironically, which is 4, came loose. And that was the one that was really in there. So I have hope. I'm pretty sure that one is loose. But again, these two I can't get off the crankshaft because of the angle. And I've been just trying to rotate the crank to get to a different position, right? So I can get to the rod bolts. But it will not budge. Then I thought, it's because the cam is stuck and the timing chain is linking them, and therefore... So I took all that off, and that didn't change anything. Although, note to self and any viewers, absolutely take the timing chain off if you're doing anything like this, because it is tying the cam to the crank. So anything you're trying to spin on one, you got to spin on the other. So that's a lesson learned. I did finally learn, but it didn't change anything in my case. So I gotta think that it's that one piston that's so seized right now that it won't even let me turn the crank. It won't let me do squat. So I put in more PB Blaster. We're gonna let it sit. I've been vibrating it with a plenishing attachment here. I've been pounding the piss out of it with various metal things. I mean, I've gone to metal because I've just given up on saving these pistons. So I'm beating the hell out of them from any possible direction. I did want to show you that because I got to research what that means. Usually there's a stamp that says, 0.010 or 020. It tells you some oversizing pistons. I haven't ever seen it. I don't see a decimal place, right? So it's just 0015, and I don't know what this means. So I'm going to research that, and I'll tell you what it means. All right, it's the next day, and that blaster did seep around the sides, and that one just makes a different noise when I bang on it, so I'm convinced that's free. This guy is still a mother, so I'm going to be beating on that one today. I'm going to apply some more heat, just try to get it to free up. Now I did research the number on here, and kind of like I thought, that's just like the part number for this piston, which is terrific news because that means that the cylinders have not been bored yet at all. So I can just go in with a 20 or something and just bore everything, and it has to be bored anyways because the sides of the cylinder walls are so scored and nasty from being rusted and pitted. So I'm just going to go as big as I need to get those pits out of there and a smooth honed surface. and then I'll buy the ring set and pistons accordingly. I'm hoping I saved the piston rods, but I've been banging the shit out of that underneath and from the top, and I don't know what I've broken or scored or nastied up. So worst case is I need pistons, rings, and rods. That's worst case, which by no means is a trivial cost. I'm thinking it's like 800 bucks or something for that, but I don't know, that's kind of the way it is. And then the cost to refurbish the block and bore the cylinders, there's a cost with that. And then there's a cost with the camshaft, which I don't know, or the crankshaft for that matter, which I don't know what the condition of that is yet. So this can start to tally up. So common sense says, John, look for another 18 GB block that maybe you can salvage the rods out of, maybe you can salvage the crankshaft, the camshaft, because if I can get a block locally without the travel shipping costs for a couple $100, you know, that's the cost of rods and crankshaft or camshaft easily right there. So, you know, monetarily, I'm still better off trying to find another GB that I can swap parts out of. Also, the change from the GB to the V, the other big one, was that they went with the straight piston rods. This one has those offset kind of dog leg rods in this thing. So, yeah, I need to stay with the GB, which I want to for nostalgia's sake. So these are some of the monetary calculations and trade-offs you got to do to see the most economical way of refurbishing one of these old engines. I realize I'm delirious from pounding on this piston, but oh my God, you see that? It has moved almost 1/4 of an inch. So there is an end in sight. I will keep you posted. This one you can't really tell, but it should have gone down the same amount. But again, I think this one is free. So we're close. 2 hours later, you'll notice there's no bloody pistons in there. And so I won. This guy sucked ass. All right, this guy, I had to heat it up 3 or 4 times. I let it soak 2 nights with blaster. I've been pounding the hell out of it from both directions. As I said, I had to rotate it just enough to get those nuts off, which I finally did. And then it was easy because I could take the crankshaft out, which is sitting here. I haven't had time to inspect it yet, but I think I'm pleasantly surprised. Actually, I think that bad boy can be salvaged. And there's one. This is the one that just came out on its own accord kind of thing. There's 2. Looking just like a brand new one. There's 3 and 4. 4 put up a battle too, and you can see that whole top 1/2 inch of piston was just bonded to the cylinder, and very difficult to remove. But I don't think I gnarled up the connecting rods too bad. I mean, yeah, the piston pins are bad, or the gudgeon pins, I forget what the tech name is, I call them pins. So on to the next step. I will admit to all the users, I did slip with the sledgehammer and nick that up, but I think that's something that will not cause me any issues downstream. So my next battle, and it is a battle, gonna be a battle, is I gotta get the cam out. Because I can't think, well, I gotta get the cam loosened up because the end of the distributor fits into that. There's a little gear at the end, and I can't get this out. So I got a feeling that that's all rusted and nasty down in there. So hopefully if I can get the cam loosened up, I'll be able to pull that out, because you got to pull that out to get the cam out. So they're all like, you got to deal with both of them. Here we go. All right, I can't make this stuff up. So all the pistons are out. And I told you I was having trouble getting the distributor out, and I thought it was just because like the gears were locked down where they meet at the cam. But what it is right here there's a plate that goes on, and it's aluminum. I'm pretty sure. It could be steel, but I think it's aluminum. Then you've got the distributor that fits down into that sleeve. And then this steel, and that's aluminum. And then this is the steel shaft that engages to the gear that hits the cam. So the bottom of this steel shaft is, I believe, flared where it meets contact with the shaft hitting the cam. But whatever has seized up this engine has seized in here to the point where I've tried everything. I've tried heat, I've tried banging it, and obviously the whole distributor just got destroyed. There was no way it was going to be saved. So it's been sacrificed, and I still have got nothing. And I've put heat into it. I've let blasters sit overnight. So this is my next battle, and this is a tough one, because that shaft or that sleeve that's into the block is like this deep, and that's a lot of surface area that got corroded. I think it's galvanic rust issues between the two metals at this point, which it makes me very sad. So I'm going to work on this the best I can. I might at some point try welding on a slide hammer to this and trying to, you know, impact it up. But I'm going to try putting a little more heat in here. There's a few more chemicals I'm going to try putting in here. I've seen everything from, obviously, the PB blasters, acetone, with other things like transmission fluid, but even putting acetone with the blaster. Acetone is just very thin, and so it can get into places that other things can't, but it does evaporate quickly. So heat is always your best option. Heat just frees things up if you can get enough heat into it. But I can't get a lot of heat into this thing, and I've got oxyacetylene. I'm not using like a Burns-O-Matic, but it just doesn't penetrate deep enough to break all this free. So this is an interesting one. This is a quandary, because I can't bang it in. I've got to find ways to pull it out, but the goal is always to get it to rotate. If you can get seized things, cylindrical, to rotate, it will come out. So that's the goal. So the best I can do is with a chisel, hammer on this on the outer edge to try and get a moment around the center to try and break it. So that's all I can do at this point, because as you see, everything's broken away. All the aluminum distributor pieces are gone, and I can't spin this shaft because it's just turning the gear down at the cam, and it's just gonna bung those threads up and stuff. So that does me no good either, spinning this, because it will spin, but it doesn't do anything. That's where I am now. But once that's out, this block is in remarkably good shape. The crankshaft is here, and the journals are worn, but this can be reconditioned. They're not too expensive to have these ground and polished, you know, 20 over. And again, the block, we know the cylinders are horrific, but those are easily bored 20 over, and then you can just buy a kit with oversized pistons and bearings and everything. So it's looking good, except for this stuck nonsense here. So kind of wish me luck on this one. All right, I drilled a bunch of like 5/16 holes around here, and then something gave loose. That's obviously loose. Let's see if you can see what's going on here. So I just drilled a radial pattern around there, and what has happened is the distributor cap piece has peeled away from the insert. So there's that. There's the distributor. So now what I'm left with is that the insert sleeve, and that's the one that's bonded to the block. So we're getting there. Maybe without all that internal material there, I can get this thing to free up. But I need two hands, so I haven't bunged it up too bad. Again, this is just all can be sealed. But I'd like to keep that inner wall intact. So, and again, that's the shaft that is coupled to the shaft that goes to the cam. All right, and that's the shaft I'm talking about. It just pulled out, and that's the couple that engages the shaft that leads directly to the cam. So I gotta get this outer sleeve out of here without bunging up everything. Here we go. Another update in the saga. So I've made a couple of radial cuts with a saber saw going down in there. Oh, before that, I figured, all I got is like an 1/8" ring of aluminum here with direct access to heat it up. So I heated this thing up like hell, and that didn't break whatever the bond is in here. So I'm still chipping at it, and if you can see right here, it did chip away and leave the steel wall intact. So I haven't screwed that up at all. Again, this top ring, I can just buff that out. But this is really unbelievable how seized this thing is. It's just like it's one piece of metal damn near. So perseverance is just gonna win this one, that's all. Just perseverance. Alright, bitches. As you can see, I'm almost there. Where is that guy? That son of a bitch. What did it was I gave it one more superheating. I got it like cherry red, and then I started banging on it, and it finally started to rotate. At which point, I knew I had won. Then I had to kind of pry it up out of the hole, like from the inside. But there it is. I didn't bung up the hole in any way except for this top, but again, I'll just smooth that out with a file. So now, oh my god, theoretically the shaft in there was spinning, so I'll be able to just pull that out. At which point I can pull the camshaft out and inspect it. So there you have it, gang. That sucked a lot, and that's just the stuff that you kind of run into when you're refurbishing anything old and metal. But I always win in the end, one way or another. All right, so I just had a scare I was trying to get the camshaft out, and it wouldn't come out. I mean, it moved and it rotated. So something not camshaft was keeping it in there. And I'm thinking, oh my God, the lifters are in there. And they're all seized, just as bad as that distributor was. And I contemplated hanging myself. I was thinking, what should I use? Like a chair? To, you know, just kind of knock the chair out from under me, or I could step off a ladder. Various ways of doing it, and I was contemplating that. But I tried tapping them down. I had a slight angle under each cam lobe where I could knock it, and they all moved. Not easily, but they did all move. So once I got the lifters out of the way, knocked in, the cam pulled out. So I live to fight this thing another day. That's what's left of the distributor debacle. I'm gonna show this to the car as a warning what will happen to it if it tries this stuff anymore. Next phase in this process is to get the block cleaned up. And by clean, I mean we know that all the water passages are clogged with rust. We know that. And obviously it's caked with oil and nasty, as all engine blocks are. I'm gonna do this before I take it to the machine shop, because around this area it's very hard to find anybody who will deal with acid dipping, whether it's an entire car body or just an engine block. So really all they do, if you find a machine shop around here that even attempts to clean engine blocks, there will be no acid dunking to remove rust. They'll like dip it in cleanser, like a ultrasonic cleansing solution, but it does de-oil it, takes the oil off of it, but it doesn't do anything about rust. So my plan of attack is I'm going to sandblast it inside and out. I'll protect the whatever important surfaces need to be protected. And then I'm going to pressure wash it to get any of that sand residue off or any other stuff that doesn't come clean. And then I'm gonna dunk it into basically a container of rust dissolver. And what I think I'm gonna do is use an Evapo-Rust-ish, a home-brewed Evapo-Rust. And there's plenty of YouTubes out there that go into how to make that. So that's the plan of attack. At that point, the block will be clean inside and out, and then I'll take it around to machine shops to get some pricing on boring the cylinders 20 over. We know that the cylinders are stock because of the stamping on the top of the pistons, and I don't know the status of the cam and the crankshaft yet because I haven't measured anything. That will be another episode on how to measure to see what the wear on your engine is. Again, there's plenty of them out there, but again, this episode of revamping an MGB is soup to nuts, right? Everything you need to know about doing your car, you can learn right here.